This week on Outdoor Oklahoma, we take a look at the Sooner State's highly successful deer management program. We'll talk with biologists about how far we've come and what's next on the horizon for Oklahoma deer hunters.
Well, hello and welcome to Outdoor Oklahoma. I'm Todd Craighead. Today I'm with Dallas Barber, our big game biologist here at the Wildlife Department. And Dallas, deer management is one of the main things that you're focused on with your job.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, when I first started deer hunting more than 40 years ago, it was a big deal for me to end the 9-day deer gun season having just seen a deer, let alone have the chance to even harvest it.
Yeah, and you know, that's pretty typical for a lot of our hunters. You know, I still get a lot of stories of people who talk about how, you know, when my granddad was hunting, you know, he took me and we saw a deer track. It was something that we went back to deer camp and kind of hooped and hollered about and we're excited about. But you know, the history of our deer program and deer in general in the state is a lot like, you know, the rest of the country. We had a lot of market hunting going on during that time, which really depleted the resource. And you know, in the 20s, you know, we had 500 deer in the state. So I mean, it was a statewide estimate of 500 animals, which is pretty astonishing to think about when you look at it today. You know, in the 30s, we started hunting again back kind of in the southeast part of the state, just a handful of counties that really had a huntable population. During the 40s is when we really started kind of a program that was moving deer around, capturing them and transplanting those animals across the state to really try to increase that population. We were bringing animals from the Wichita Mountains, and we were also bringing animals from Fort Sill and some animals from Port Aransas as well down in Texas. So a really cool story there during the 40s. The 50s brought us our first archery season. So that's kind of when that started to get kicked off, and it's really just kind of gone uphill ever since from there. During the 70s, we introduced our Cy Curtis program, which is our records program for deer, and at that time it was just deer, but now it's kind of expanded out to all of our big game animals. And you look at just the history of that in our state, and it's really quite an astonishing story. You know, you move to the 2000s, and we really start to see a big harvest number starting to show up, where we're starting to harvest almost 100,000 animals a year. You know, in 2013, we got to the point where it was kind of focused on numbers there at first. We're managing for opportunity, providing people as much opportunity at harvesting deer as possible. And in 2013, we came up with the slogan of "Hunters in the Know, Let Young Bucks Grow." And that has really blossomed kind of a mindset change of focusing a little bit more on trophy animals. And we're really starting to see the benefits of that.
You know, your position as big game biologist has really only been held by just a very small handful of individuals over the years. Most of our big game biologists stick around for quite a while. And two gentlemen that have held the reins for deer management in Oklahoma for many years are Mike Shaw and Jerry Shaw. Now, contrary to popular opinion, they're not related whatsoever. But we're going to have a chance to visit with both of these gentlemen as they take a look back and remind us of where we've come and how far we've come with our deer management.
Well, when I was first hired back in the late 70s, it was 1979, we were only harvesting 13,000 deer in the whole state. So, you know, people had been preached to for many decades that we were supposed to protect the does. That was the future of the herd. And it was apparent to most of the biologists in the department that we had to implement some sort of a doe harvest or antlerless harvest in order to keep the herd in check in certain areas, predominantly in the eastern part of the state. And that was a big challenge. Even within the department, some of the folks that, you know, worked on these wildlife management areas, they had spent their whole careers basically protecting does. And I don't think anybody, including me, had the idea or understood at that time the explosive growth of the herd, you know, that was to come. Well, from 1979 to basically, you know, when we were harvesting 12,000 deer, the herd grew exponentially. And by 2000, I think it was the first year that we actually harvested over 100,000 deer. And by 2006, we hit a record harvest of 119,000, just shy of 120,000 deer. So, it really grew during my career, my tenure with the department. And I guess nowadays you're still harvesting, on average something like 110,000 deer. So we've been able to sustain that harvest, and that's great. One thing you have to remember is that deer productivity varies quite a bit from one part of the state to the other. So we had to adjust the way that people were going to take antlerless deer to get a certain percentage that we desired. And we started out, back in the mid-70s by issuing permits. Probably, there are some people still around that remember the permit program. And when we went through several iterations of that, the first ones were, permits by county, and then we went to more of a scientific method where we allotted permits by harvest unit. That was never really met with a lot of success. We never really achieved the antlerless harvest that we needed, so we decided to move to an antlerless day system. We still have, and that was much more successful. And we were able to adjust antlerless days and make them available, in different seasons and different times during the season, and generally come up with an antlerless harvest that was, that was practical and that met our desires for that particular harvest unit or area of the state. Early on in the late 90s, we began to have some issues not only with hunters. Hunters, we were doing a good job as far as managing the herd for them, but we had some problems with depredation, crop depredation, and it was decided at that time that what we should do would be to hold a series of stakeholder meetings where we get together all of the people in the state or representatives from different groups, farmers, ranchers. We had people within the department from law enforcement, administration, biologists. We had insurance people. A variety of people, anybody really basically that had a stake in what the deer herd was doing. And we went around the state and held 6 or 7 different meetings. And I started out by giving a short program showing what the herd had done, give them a little bit of a historical and biological background. And then basically we opened it up for comments. And we ended up with thousands and thousands of comments, which we went through and basically tried to synthesize those into some recommendations. And the result was that we came up with a series of recommendations that we made to the commission, several of which were approved, which expanded antlerless opportunity, and there was some recommendations as far as the Deer Management Assistance Program, and it was really the first concerted effort, I think, other than public hearings, that we made to really involve people around the state and get them involved with the deer program. We had preached protect those does for so long, and then we just totally went the other way and said we need to harvest does, and it wasn't something that was going to happen overnight. We needed to get the word out and explain why, and I think the magazine and a variety of publications, the regulations, we always used those, Big Game Report. We use those to try to explain our methodology, our techniques for doing that. And eventually I think hunters became more aware, especially as the herd grew to the point where they could see that harvesting does wasn't going to have a detrimental impact on the population.
Good job, Eli. Good job, buddy.
Really?
Good job. Good shot.
Dallas, regardless if Oklahoma deer hunters today know Mike Shaw by name or not, we all are continuing to enjoy that foundation that he laid for us all. And he painted a pretty big picture there, a broad picture of how far we've come. But in your tenure, what would you say are some of those elements that have contributed to the success of Oklahoma's deer population?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a handful of things that I think we can attribute to our success here over the last handful of years. One of them that we can't control at all would be the weather. You know, that's nothing that we can change or alter, but luckily over the last couple of years we've really been blessed with some mild springs and summers that have had rainfall. You know, that's the most key thing that we've gotten to enjoy is a little bit of rain, and in a lot of places probably too much rain. But you know, that equals good habitat, and habitat equals deer numbers. So for us, that's one thing that we've definitely been blessed by. The next one would probably be our DMAP program, which is a long tenured program now. It began back in the 90s, but we're really starting to see the benefit of that. And that program really focuses on antlerless deer harvest. Private landowners can sign up for that program with a 1,000-acre minimum. You don't have to have 1,000 acres total. You can kind of patchwork that together with your neighbors. So if you've all got kind of the same mindset there, you can all get enrolled in that program. And we assign you a biologist, and they work one-on-one with you to, you know, kind of assess your deer habitat, your deer numbers, and make some harvest recommendations to you. And that program allows you to kind of go outside of your bag limit there for antlerless deer. And next, I would definitely say that, you know, our campaign effort that we have really pushed over the last little while of Hunters in the Know, Let Young Bucks Grow, has really taken a foothold with a lot of our hunters. And you know, it's them that are our true deer managers. We can recommend as much as we want, but they're the ones that have got the boots on the ground and have really adopted that. And you can see that in a lot of our age of bucks as they're harvested. You know, when we came out with that in 2013, a lot of our bucks that were being harvested, that 1.5 to 2.5 year old range, made up almost 40% of our total buck harvest. And you look at that today and it's shifted down around to that 20% range. So they're definitely making a huge impact on the age class of our deer here in Oklahoma. And lastly, I mean, technology has changed so much over the last little while. And trail cameras have had a huge impact, as well as social media. There's a lot of things that really kind of have motivated hunters to really kind of start to focus on age class as a motivating factor for harvest.
You know, those all, I think back of different hunts that maybe I had a camera picture of a big deer and I passed on a deer and I thought, you know, I probably wouldn't have done that 20 years ago.
Yeah, had you not had a picture of him.
Right. And then campaign slogans come to my mind even when I'm sitting in the blind as well.
Absolutely.
So I know that those things have had an impact on my behavior as a hunter. You know, another Shaw that has had a tremendous impact on our foundation is Jerry Shaw, that held the reins for deer management here in Oklahoma for many years as well.
And we looked to our left, and I think we both saw him at the same time. A nice little buck come walking in. This time I don't think I had to say anything to her. She stayed real calm, took her time, had to wait for the buck to kind of move, or a few deer move away from the buck before we could get a good shot at it.
There he is.
Holy smoke. Hold on, don't just run up on him. He's dead. There's your first buck. What do you think?
Oh, man.
That's awesome.
Dad, I'm so excited that on the first day I got to go hunting, I got 2 deer. Not only just a doe, but a good-sized buck, all in the same night. It's just time I'll never forget.
Well, I tell you what, I couldn't be more proud. Over the span of the 20 years I've been working with the deer program here in Oklahoma, we really have made quite significant changes. When I first hired on, we were more geared towards just numbers. We wanted maximum opportunity for our hunters, and the quality of the animal really wasn't quite a concern. Now, as hunters are becoming a little bit more savvy, a little bit more educated, they're taking on more of that management role that used to be in place with regulations. Hunters themselves are deciding how they're wanting to manage the deer on their property. As a result, we're changing some regulations and kind of changing our focus a little bit from not necessarily just a maximum opportunity to making sure we have a balanced herd that's in line with the herd itself and in line with the habitat. As a result, we're able to provide opportunity, but at the same time, we're able to increase some of the quality of the animals that we have. If you look at deer hunting through the generations, if you look at my dad's generation, when he began deer hunting and when he was active, just seeing a deer was a big accomplishment. Now that my children are starting to deer hunt, they get bored if they sit in a stand and don't see 10 deer a night. So as the population has changed and as the habitat has changed around the state, you know, our attitudes towards management had to adapt as well. One way that we get to those attitudes of our hunters is through our annual game harvest survey, a scientific study that actually gets us feedback on what our hunters are wanting us to manage for. I tell people that we can manage for any type of situation that they want. We just need to know their input. Currently, the input is about down the middle. We have just a slightly higher number of hunters that are looking for opportunity. They're just wanting the chance to go out and take any deer. But a growing proportion of our hunters are interested in quality deer management or in trophy deer management. They're wanting to see bigger animals. And as our survey data has shown, with more hunters interested in managing for quality animals, it's important for us as an agency to remind our hunters that they are the managers. We can make recommendations, but when you're actually in the woods, the animals that you take and the animals that you pass on is a management decision. And it's our job to educate hunters as to what the results of those management decisions might be. You know, there are several factors that you can look at to see examples of how technology has improved hunting and the attitudes of hunters that might take them away from just trying to get a animal to hunting for maybe a specific animal. Trail cameras and their proliferation. You can't hardly go on a property now without 2 or 3 cameras taking your picture as you come in. Hunters have an idea of what actually is on the landscape, and once they know that, they're a lot more likely to sit in that tree and let some of these smaller animals go by, waiting for that one deer of a lifetime that maybe they've seen on camera 2 or 3 times. Social media also plays a large role in that. You know, people are pretty prone to post pictures that they have from their trail cameras, showing off what their management plans have actually built on their property, and they're sharing those ideas and sharing those photos and just building that quality deer community. If you've been a deer hunter in Oklahoma for any length of time, you probably remember the slogan, "Hunters in a know take a doe." A lot of credit has to go to our hunters. They took that slogan to heart and have actually increased antlerless harvest over the years. Now we're at roughly 45 to 40% of our annual harvest is comprised of antlerless deer. It's important to point out that we need to continue that level of antlerless harvest. Just because we're entering into a new phase of deer management in Oklahoma, we can't leave that one behind. But as we enter into this new phase, we've also come up with a new slogan. It's "Hunters in a know, let young bucks grow." What this is designed is to increase voluntary restraint on the harvest of young bucks. The goal is to add more older age animals to the landscape. As a result, we should have improved herd dynamics as well as increased the number of quality deer that are available for our hunters. Reflecting back on my career, I was fortunate to come into a program that had been managed excellently by Mike Shaw. For years, he held the reins of the deer program and really built it into a program that Oklahoma should be proud of. It's important for me as a manager to remember that I play just a small role in deer management. It's the hunters in the field themselves that are making these management decisions. We can provide education, we can provide training, and we can provide regulations, but it's the hunters themselves making those management decisions when they're in the tree, behind their bow, behind their rifle, that every time they pull the trigger, they're making a management decision. And without their buying into the program, without their participation, and without their hard work and dedication, our deer management program would not be where it is today.
You know, Dallas, since I've become more involved with social media, it's more and more evident how many misconceptions there are out there when it comes to deer hunting, because I see it nearly on a daily basis on social media. What are some of those, I guess maybe if they're your own pet peeves, but what are some of those biggest misconceptions when it comes to deer management?
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and it tends to spread like wildfire throughout most of social media. But I mean, one of the big things I see is the word cull, or culling a buck. And when you look at that kind of from a grand scheme of things, there are 3 things that you kind of have to to look at in regards to antler development for bucks, and that's going to be age, nutrition, and genetics. Now, the first two things we can somewhat control. You know, we can improve habitat for nutrition. We can, you know, look at a deer and focus on age at harvest. But one thing that we cannot impact, regardless of how hard we try, is going to be those genetics. You know, it's really difficult to control that genetic flow on your farm. You know, you can't determine who passes on what genes to who. And another really big factor there is it's hard to analyze what genes does are going to be passing on. They don't have antlers to look at to tell who has good genes and who doesn't.
And they take up half of the genetic code.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. And some studies show that does have a little bit more impact than bucks do on antler development.
Well, you know, I've had that exact same situation on a place that I hunt where it seems that 8 out of 10 of my deer have a lopsided, one-sided rack. And we thought about trying to cull, but then I remembered, you know, from school and from elsewhere that really doesn't have much of an impact. And I had to remind my hunting partners that just selectively harvesting out certain bucks is only half or less of the equation, because the doe is responsible for half that genetic makeup.
Exactly. And you know, another really big misconception I see are when people, and a lot of this is when people are asking about the age of a deer. You know, they'll have a picture and they'll ask, is this deer 3.5 or 4.5 or 6.5? And it's something that's really difficult to do on the hoof. But what is a lot easier to do is kind of put those into some categories. So we look at, you know, I like to use young, mature, and old. Those are 3 really easy ones to remember, and they've got some distinguishable characteristics to them. So a younger buck, which I'd put as that, you know, yearling all the way up to kind of a 3.5-year-old buck, is going to have, you know, a lot straighter back, a smaller neck that doesn't necessarily blend into that brisket area. You know, that mature group is going to be starting to develop that kind of swayed belly and a little bit of a arched back. The neck will be wider than the face, is one that's a really easy one to look at, especially when you can get that buck to kind of, you know, pick up his head and look at you. And then an old buck looks old. I mean, that's a really basic thing to say, but it's true. You know, you'll start to see some graying on the face. You'll really start to see some skin wrinkling. Those legs will start to appear a little bit short for their body. They look a little bit squatty, so to speak. But
so you're saying I would pretty much be an old deer?
Well, I'm not going to say that. But, and it's just a very big misconception. You know, those groups, they tend to have all of those characteristics. And a really good thing that I like to say to people is you've got to think about it like a senior class of high school boys. They're all 18 years old, but there might be one that's 6'5" and 380, and there might be one that's 5'1" and 120. So just basing off of body characteristics to nail to a specific age is something really hard to do.
It's nitpicky and unnecessary to try to discuss or figure out, is this deer a 2.5 or 3.5?
Exactly.
Because by your measurements, they'll still fit in the same
and from
category.
my standpoint as a deer manager, as long as we can determine those ages in those groups, that's more what we're managing for than a specific age. It doesn't matter data-wise if it's 6.5 or 7.5 or 5.5 or 3.5. As long as it's a mature deer versus a yearling deer, that's what we're making management decisions on.
You know, this may be obvious to some, but thanks again to social media, I realize that it's not always obvious to everybody. Tell us why we as deer managers speak in terms of 3.5 or 2.5 or 5.5.
So everything in the deer world is done on a half year, like you said. And the reason being is because all of our deer are born in the summertime. And at time of harvest, so in November in the fall, that will have been about 6 months past that time. So everything that we look at for harvest is in half year intervals.
That's great. You know, and that's one of those things that I've had people question, well, how do you know that that's not just 3 and 3.5? I know because of when it was harvested.
Exactly, and when it was born.
That's right. At the end of the day, though, what would you say is the most important thing that you, as Oklahoma's, you know, holding the reins now, what is the one thing you want to express to hunters?
Yeah, you know, I think that it's really important for our hunters to still focus on antlerless deer harvest. It's gotten to be pretty exciting to be an Oklahoma deer hunter, seeing a lot of those pictures of some really tremendous trophy animals that are being harvested. But it's still super important to harvest antlerless deer to help control our deer population.
Well, I'd just like to reiterate what Mike Shaw, Jerry Shaw, and even Dallas have mentioned, that today is a fantastic day and age to be a deer hunter in Oklahoma. I hope that you get out and make some memories for yourself this year. For all of us at your wildlife department, I'm Todd Craighead. We'll see you right back here next time on Outdoor Oklahoma.